Welcome everybody to the JAMsj 10th year anniversary of the Tohoku natural disaster and earthquake. I'm Michael Serra, the board president.
And I'm Yuki, I'm a volunteer.
Yuki, it's great to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
In today's program, what we want to do is commemorate the 10th year anniversary of the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. And today we have three separate panels. We're going to start with the past, share some of the history and what's being done to preserve the events that happened. And then we'll look at the present, talking to some students from the Mirai Gakuen. And then we'll finish off with the future. But before we start, we'd like to have a moment of silence to recognize all those lives that we lost on 3/11.
We would now like to start our program by welcoming Tak Yamashita, the Chief Executive Director of JETRO, San Francisco, since November 2019. Before being assigned to this position, he served as Chief Director for Nuclear Emergency Response Headquarters at the Cabinet Office. He was engaged in lifting evacuation orders which had been issued by the government due to the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Thanks to Tak and his many contacts in Tohoku region, we were able to contact the Iwate Tsunami Memorial Museum and Futaba Mirai Gakuen. Let's now have a few words from Tak at JETRO.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tak Yamashita. JETRO is a non-profit organization established by the Japanese government. Our mission is to promote trade and investment between Japan and foreign countries. We have 76 offices in over 50 countries, as well as 48 domestic offices. So if some of you are interested in business with Fukushima, Miyagi, and Iwate, I'd love to connect. I can also help promoting business of Japan towns. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tak. We would like to now begin the program with a look at the past and introduce Darrell Miho, who will share his experiences visiting Tohoku shortly after 3/11, and Hazuki Kumagai, the curator at the Iwate Tsunami Memorial Museum.
Darrell Miho is a professional photographer and documentary filmmaker specializing in people, sports, travel, and architecture. His work has been published in such notable publications as Sports Illustrated, Golf Digest, and the New York Times. His first trip to Tohoku was in May 2011. He was so moved by what he saw and the people he met. He returned over 20 times to document stories, distribute relief goods, and organize volunteers and support the communities in need. His passion for creativity and helping others is what drives him to pursue projects that will make this world a better place.
Joining us all the way from Iwate, Japan is Hazuki Kumagai. She was born in Rikuzen, Takata, Iwate, Japan, and is an English docent at the Iwate Tsunami Memorial Museum. She was 16 years old when the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami hit the area. She went to the Gunma Prefectural Women's University and did a one-year study abroad program at California State University, San Bernardino, before graduating in 2017. She moved back to her hometown at the end of 2018 and started working at the Rikuzen Takata Tourism Association before joining the Iwate Tsunami Memorial Museum in the April of 2020. Before we bring Darrell and Hazuki, we'd like to share a video that Darrell produced back in 2013, followed by a video of the Iwate Tsunami Memorial Museum.
皆さん、ご支援いろいろありがとうございました。第一番に駆けつけてもらったのもアメリカです。我々はこれから復興に向けて頑張りますのでよろしくお願いします。
いろいろなもの、それからプレゼントいっぱいいっぱいありがとうございました。1年経ったけどこれから先も元気でいっぱい笑いながら過ごしたいと思います。ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。
今まで、ご支援くださった方々本当にありがとうございました。Thank you for America。
ご支援ありがとうございます。末永い応援よろしくお願いします。ありがとうございます。
アメリカの皆さん、いろいろご支援ありがとうございます。これから復興が始まります。もっともっと頑張りますんで、これからもよろしくお願いします。
ありがとう。
儲けてアメリカに行くぞ。
ありがとう。
Thank you very much for helping Japan and we always appreciate you. Thanks America. せーの。
ありがとうございました。
Just a reminder to the participants, if you have any questions for Darrell and Hazuki, please ask them in the Q&A section after we are done with the interview. We will try to address as many of the questions as we can. Darrell and Hazuki, thanks for joining us, and thanks for allowing us to share your video with everyone.
Hi, I'm Darrell Miho, and I'm a photographer. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I currently live in Las Vegas. And I've been to Tohoku now over 25 times now since 3/11.
Wow. And what motivated you to visit Tohoku shortly after 3/11?
Well, I think we all saw the images on TV, the disaster, the tsunami, the earthquake, and all the damage. So as a photojournalist, my instinct is to go document things. And I happened to be going to Japan in May to work on another project that I'm working on. So while I was over there, I added another 3 days to my trip, and me and my friend took a train up to Tohoku, and then we basically just went to go see what happened. We really didn't have any specific plan. We just kind of went to just to go see what happened, and just to see how bad the damage was. And having seen other disasters, I kind of knew that there were going to be a lot of needs. I mean, a disaster that scale, the government can't do everything. So in the back of my head, I was thinking, we need to go there, document stories, and see what needs are going to be needed on the ground. And the best way to do that is to be there in person.
And Hazuki, could you please introduce yourself?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Hazuki Kumagai. I was born in Rikuzen Takata, which is north of Japan. And also, I'm living at the same place. I went to California to study abroad for 1 year, 2015 to 2016. So that's why I speak English a little. Nice to meet you.
And then where were you on 3/11?
I was high school student and engaged in my high school club activity at my high school. And after the big earthquake occurred, the teachers told us to evacuate and ran to the hills above the school.
Ah, okay. And I'm sure you still have lots of memories from that day.
Yes. I look at the tsunami. The water is not it's not clear. It's like a black or brown or something. And the city is completely changed. Like landscapes. Many houses are completely destroyed, include my houses, my house, my school building. So yeah, it's really hard to me because everything is changed.
So Darrell-san, can you tell me what it was like when you first got there?
It was very surreal, if I can put it into words. Because as you drive around and you look at all the damage, you can see, in Ishinomaki, you can see as far as I can see, it's just everything is wiped out. This next picture is Watari, and then in Kesanuma, these ships are 3/4 of a mile inland. They're not even at the harbor. And then you start seeing things that aren't in the places that they're supposed to be. Like this water tower or water tank in Ishinomaki, and this other water tank in Ishinomaki. It's on the breakwater. And the one thing in Ishinomaki that I distinctly remember was the smell, because of all the fish that had been washed ashore, had been rotting for the past 2 months. The smell was just horrible. Think of your worst trash nightmare and multiply it by 10, and that's what it was. And then you start seeing park benches underwater because Ishinomaki sank 9 feet. And then you see cars in between buildings, and then cars on top of buildings. And then you see cars and boats on top of pedestrian walkways, and then you see boats where the houses are, and then you see a house where the boats are supposed to be. After seeing all this damage, I started wondering, what did it look like before this? Because, all the residents tell me, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful place. And so I did some research, and I found this picture of Rikuzen Takata Forest, which is a forest of 70,000 pine trees on the coast. And then it's all wiped away. They were broken like toothpicks. And then this other picture is the lone pine tree that was left standing. It survived the tsunami, but it eventually died because of salt water damage. But the city restored it, and they have a resin copy of it now standing. And so, this pine tree became a symbol of hope for the people of Tohoku. And then, then there's Minami Sanriku, which is where I spent a lot of my time. And you can see the top photo was what it used to look like, and the bottom photo is what happened after the tsunami. It's really hard to explain what it looks like, without actually going there. I mean, you can see the images on TV, but once you're there, it's almost overwhelming, you know. So it's really bad some places.
Darrell, thank you very much for sharing that information. Hazuki-san, what was your experience like immediately after the disaster from your perspective?
I stayed the temple nearby my high school. I couldn't get back my area because it was lots of debris on my area. So after I met my family 5 or 6 days later. So it was very hard.
So can you tell us what the first 90 days were like right after 3/11?
I stayed at community center after I met my families, which was evacuation center with the neighbors, my area. And the school restarted 2 months later. I moved to neighboring town. My school is the very latest to restart my classes. And my school activities couldn't get work because everything was lost by the tsunami. So many people send it us many staffs or like instruments, sending music sheets, and also many stuffs like notes, pencils, like tables, blackboards, something like that. So my situation is very hard for me, but I felt very grateful at the same time.
Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yes, thank you so much. I was wondering if you could share with us any sort of like personal anecdotes that you remember. I'm sure you might have a lot, but I was wondering if you could share 1 or 2 of them.
Well, I guess the moment that everything came full circle for me was, so we had just driven from Ishinomaki to Minami Sanriku. This is our second day there. And Minami Sanriku is about an hour and a half from Sendai. And so we just happened to be there and it was getting dark and we went into the emergency shelter to talk to people. But in the end, towards the end, we had to go, we had to drive back. We actually were planning to sleep in the car, because we were going to be kind of lazy. We didn't want to drive all the way back to Sendai and then drive all the way back. But, after talking to Jun Suzuki and Mrs. Suzuki, who is no relation, they kind of figured out that they assumed that we were going to drive back to Sendai. So they actually insisted that we stayed with them in the emergency shelter. And we're like, no, we can't do that. We can't stay here. This is for you guys, this is for you. And, the Japanese saying is, if they ask 3 times, you can't say no. And they kept insisting. And so we reluctantly stayed in the Hinanjo. And then in the middle of the night, Jun Suzuki was walking around and, I was lying down on the floor. And then just like my parents, he took a blanket and he put it on top of me. He covered me, just like a parent does to his child. And, that was the moment where I realized, these people are really nice. They're special. So that's probably one of the many, many memories I have there. So, yeah.
Wow, what a really strong personal anecdote. And thank you so much for sharing that. I think many of us have, when you mentioned that, we recalled our own parents doing the same. So yeah. Thank you so much for sharing.
So Hazuki-san, it's been 10 years now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so where do you live now and what are you doing?
I'm living in Rikuzen, Takata. I'm docent at the Iwate Tsunami Memorial. We have a background. We have the right side, Iwate Tsunami Memorial Museum.
Yeah, I look forward to going and visiting someday. I'd love to see the museum.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the museum, can you tell us a little bit about the museum?
Okay, so this museum shares the lessons and teaching we have learned from the realities of the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami through the exhibits, pictures, and movies.
I'm curious, because you've been going back and forth many times now. I imagine you have been able to see how things have changed a lot over the years. Could you share some of the things that you've been noticing?
Yeah, so, since the beginning, we saw the disaster photos earlier. So in the process, I've gone back almost multiple times every year until 2017. So I've been able to see, the different areas, how they've changed. In the video, you saw 1 year later, Ishinomaki, Kesanuma. But I also, I was able to see how the residents moved from the emergency shelter, and then they moved to temporary housing. And then from temporary housing, they moved to these, to permanent housing. And as of, I think, 2016 or 2017, there was no more temporary housing, so everyone had moved out by then. And then in Minami Sanriku, they built a temporary shopping center, like the one you see here, the first year, 1 year after the disaster. And then 4 years after, or 5 years after, they then built a permanent shopping center, which is, you can see in this picture. And then one thing that most of the coastal cities are building are, their seawalls. And there's these massive walls, the original wall here in Minami Sanriku was like 9 feet tall. And then now you can see in this picture, they're like 30, 35 feet tall, and back of me, you can see, the seawall in Minami Sanriku. And this other picture is a seawall being built in Kuji. And then in Minami Sanriku, you can see at first, 3 years after the disaster, everything is still kind of flattened. All the debris has been moved out, and everything has been kind of cleared out. And then 1 year later, you can start seeing the mounds they're building, and as they build up the land, they're going to raise the land 30 feet. And then in 2017, you can see permanent structures being built now. You can see the new road that they built through the hillside. You can still see a hotel and a celebration hall that is one of the few buildings that were still standing. So, as you can see, it's been lots of changes now since the beginning. And, it's been 10 years, but I estimate it's still going to be another 10 years before they actually fully recover and rebuild.
Darrell, thank you very much. I remember going to Minami Sanriku with you the first time and seeing that transformation, and then having gone back recently and going to this new shopping area that they've developed. Yeah, it's a big change, right? Because now it's elevated so high. And I'm sure, they wanted to do that so that if there was ever another tsunami, they would be above ground or high enough to not have to worry. So it's a challenge. I remember you also told me one other thing, which was that they were not allowed to build any housing at the lowland, right? Because of worries. And so there's only manufacturing and company buildings that are on the sea level, if you will, and all the housing is now up on the hills. Well, thank you again for sharing that. Hazuki-san, now how long have you been at the museum?
I joined this museum in this April, so
okay.
It's almost 1 year. Hi.
Okay. You mentioned you're a docent, and
Yes.
and so that's kind of close and dear to my heart, since I'm also a docent at the Japanese American Museum. Can you tell me what a typical day looks like for you at your museum?
Recently, because of coronavirus, so we try to take the measures against the disease, like put some hand sanitizer or check body heats and clean up the chairs, something like that. But and also visitors is not so much to visiting our museum, so they try to ventilate.
Yes.
Many times.
Okay. So do you have any virtual tours that you offer?
Yes, but it's only visiting in Japan, not overseas.
Okay. So Hazuki-san, in closing, do you have a message that you'd like to share with the people back in the US?
Okay, thank you for supporting us. Without you guys, we couldn't be reconstruction, and also I may not be here. So I really appreciate it. After coronavirus disappear, I would like to go to California to visit Japanese American Museum and to meet you guys. Yeah, because I love California's weather. I miss California's weather.
Hazuki-san, we welcome you anytime.
Yay!
California misses you.
Yes.
We would now like to open it up for questions from the audience.
So Yuki, you want to start us off?
Yes, I would love to. Okay, so Penny Phillips from the audience has said that the photos are very, very powerful, and it must have been so emotional to be there and take the photos. And Penny asks, how does any country, any coastline, prepare for a tsunami? You know, for volcanoes, earthquakes, anything like that, any sort of natural disasters. You know, she thinks that resiliency of the Tohoku community has to be acknowledged. Did you have any comments about that, Darrell-san or Hazuki-san?
I'd have to say that it's, you know, with Mother Nature, you cannot prepare for everything, as we saw in Tohoku. There's actually documentation in Rikuzen Takata where they found a rock that said, do not build below this line because of a past tsunami that hit them. But history, that story did not get passed down through generations, and they built on sea level. So I think what the areas are doing now by raising all the land, building up all the infrastructure, you know, they're doing what they can now based on what they experienced in the past. And, you know, I think that's as much as you can ask from any city, town, municipality, because, you know, you can't predict the future. We have no idea, you know, the power of Mother Nature, because, you know, it's just, you know, Mother Nature, she gets pissed, and there's not much you can do sometimes. So that's about all I can really say about that.
Craig asked the question, you know, he's seen many videos about the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, but he's asking whether or not there's a good book that you would recommend, or Hazuki-san, if you would recommend, just to capture the memories so that we don't forget.
Memories of disaster or something?
津波の本とか何かありますでしょうか?
Yes. Iwate Tsunami Memorial has a lot of the tsunami books, like the Takata, Rikuzen Takata, the neighbors like Ofunato, Kamaishi, or something. Other sea coast in Iwate's cities has Iwate Tsunami Memorial has 12 cities on each seaside in Iwate.
でこの本は葉月さん、岩手の博物館で売ってるのか、そのウェブサイトでなんか売ってます？
I think
Can they purchase them through the website, or how can they purchase them?
We can purchase on the website or picture book.
Yes.
But like data of the circumstance of the March 11th in that city, I think the administration is each city. I think we may not buy or purchase.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we will post, Craig, just so you know, we will post the link for the Iwate Museum in the chat. So look for that.
Okay.
And Darrell-san, I imagine, you know, you must have done a lot of research when you were doing, you know, your documentary as well. Did you have any books that really spoke to you? Or any sort of resources?
None that I can actually tell you what their names are, but I've also bought them. You know, being in Minami-Sanriku, you know, they have a small store and they have books that have pictures of the disaster. I don't know how we can order them here in the United States, but I do know they're out there, and most likely, you know, the Tsunami Museum Iwate probably has some of the ones that I bought. So
Yeah, I have that down.
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure how to find those leaks, unless you have a friend in Japan, and maybe we can scour the bookstores in Japan. So, but yeah, or Amazon, who knows? I'm not sure.
Well, we'll definitely look out for it. And another audience member, Toshihiko, he asks, there must have been many factors, whether it be mentally and, with radiation risk, all the rumors that are going around, especially around like with the radiation, personal anxiety, sleep issues, all of those, and, like just even the anxiety towards the future. Could you share any of those experiences you might have had, Hazuki-san?
What experience?
So like worries towards the future that you might have had, you sort of.
In the future?
なんか未来に対してちょっと不安があった経験とか何かありましたか？そういうふうな経験とか。
Like for me, I was worried about how to react to like many supports when I was hit by the tsunami, and then many supporters sent it to me, many staffs or something, but I didn't know how to react for the sending people to what do you call like I'm fine, I'm really appreciate it, but I didn't know how to react. So, but after I joined to Iwate Tsunami Memorial, I can react through explain about these disaster facts or lessons. So I get the way to react. Yeah,
I think that that really speaks to the power and the significance of museums and how important of a role they play in society, I think. So thank you so much for sharing.
Sorry.
No, it's great. Thank you.
Darrell, there's a question. Penny's asking, what's your next project with Tohoku?
There's nothing set in stone. I mean, I plan to continue to go back there, pretty much the rest of my life, probably, because, as a result of my going there so many times, I've built some really good friends there, lasting friendships. My real project needs to be to work on my Nihongo so I can speak fluently, because, some of these people, they don't really speak English. And so, miraculously, I'm able to get by with little Nihongo that I understand. But, I think we could have much better conversations if I was fluent. So I think that's the real pending issue now for me to learn more Japanese.
We need to practice.
はい、もっと練習します。
頑張ってね。
We need
And then-
to we need to practice English to Japanese, Japanese to
There you go.
English.
There you go.
Yeah.
Darrell, and I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for Hazuki, but they're asking about the same question Penny was asking about the radiation challenges and troubles.
Relationship and trouble?
Yes.
No, radiation, not relationship.
Radiation.
No, the radiation.
Oh, radiation. Oh, in this area is not influent. Not something. It's like mushrooms has a little system of radioactive. But this area is not really bad influence for the radioactive.
Okay.
Hi.
We're coming up on. Thank you very much, Hazuki-san. We're coming up on a 2-minute mark. Yuki, you want to finish it off with one more?
Yes. So we have one person who's asking, Hazuki-san, pre-COVID, did your museum receive a lot of American visitors and foreign visitors?
Maybe yes.
From time to time?
Maybe, but because I not joined before 2019. I used to work at the tsunami じゃなくてTakata Tourism Association, but I saw many foreigners because they have a big rugby World Cup at Kamaishi in Japan. So I saw many foreigners.
I see.
Well, very, very good. Well, that'll conclude our questions. And yeah, thank you guys both.
Thank you so much.
Thank
どう
you,
もありがとうござい
Michael
ました。お疲れ
Yuki.
様です。
Hi.
Darrell and Hazuki, thank you very much for your participation today and continue to stay safe and healthy. We would like to now move on to the second panel focused on the present. We have with us today Riku Shiota, the English instructor from Futaba Mirai Gakuen. It's the future school. 6 of his students, 3 will actually help us with their school introductory video, and 3 will participate in the interviews.
Riku Shiota is an instructor at the Futaba Future School, FFS, in Fukushima, Japan. He has been teaching for 10 years as an English language instructor. During the past 4 years, he has been a co-creator of various student projects. He has taken the FFS students to New York and had them present at the United Nations. Before we bring them on screen, we will share a short video with some background on the school.
We are students of Futaba Future School. I'm Hikaru.
I'm Hikari. I'm Kai.
Our school is in Futaba district of Fukushima Prefecture. Because of the nuclear disaster, 5 high schools near the power plant stopped allowing students in them. Futaba Future takes over the 5 schools. It has some curriculums around academic. We would like to be active citizens in the community through future creating education. In our school, we study to be innovators in society. So we think we should be self-directed, coactive, and creative.
We have enjoyed future creating education since we entered this school. We have conducted fieldwork surveys and interviews. Also, our school has overseas projects. Last year, some of the members joined our project in Germany. Now, we are a member of the US project. In this school year, our schoolmates we have run globally and locally. All of the team members speaking today during language training camp in January. We are going to join online discussion with people all over the world this month.
At the end of this introductory movie, let me show you my project. Have you ever played an application Minecraft? In the game, I have made virtual Futaba Future School. Now, I am trying to make virtual Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant so that people in the world can experience virtual fieldwork in it. It will be a chance for many people to learn from the nuclear disaster. Thank you for watching our movie.
Just a reminder to the participants, if you have any questions for Shiota Sensei or about the school, please ask him in the Q&A section. After we're done with the interview, we will be joined by Shiota Sensei, and he will try to answer as many of the questions as he can.
I'm Ayano Nozawa. I'm 17 years old. I'm in 2nd grade in high school.
I understand your school motto is to be an innovator. Could you please describe what an innovator means to you? And how do you hope to be an innovator in the future?
In my opinion, innovator can make something new. We should always dispute many things around us. And I would like to contribute to society we live.
And I wanted to ask you, what do you hope for the future of Fukushima?
I hope Fukushima to be something new to us where we can challenge anything for innovation.
Great response. Yeah, something new. I like that. Thank you so much.
I'm Hinako. I'm 17 years old. I'm in 11th grade.
Great. And then what are your favorite subjects?
My favorite subject is Japanese and English.
Do you have a dream job that you would love to tackle when you graduate?
In the future, I want to work using my language skills. Now, I want to be an interpreter.
And Hinako-san, I wanted to ask you, why did you choose to go to Futaba Mirai Gakuen?
I decided to enter this school because I want to join overseas projects and classes for raising active skills for learning. I thought I can grow at this school.
Wow, that sounds like a really exciting project that you're taking part in.
Hinako-san, can you also share with us any favorite memories at school or any projects that you did or you worked on?
My project in Future Creating Education is to promote traditional performing art for my home community so that they would not be forgotten.
Very nice, very nice. Very inspirational. Thank you very much.
I'm Kanakida. I'm 16 years old and I'm in second grade in high school.
Could you share with us what a typical day at your school looks like? Has the pandemic affected your school at all?
We, Futaba Mirai Gakuen students, took online classes last March and April, and our school trip's destination was changed from Singapore to Nagasaki in Japan, and some students couldn't hold events with people at Future Creating Education.
So do you think the experiences from the Tohoku earthquake still affect you and the community around you?
Yeah. The Tohoku earthquake has affected with what I am today in many ways, because if I didn't have the experience of it, I wouldn't think about my hometown and Futaba area.
And lastly, I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you want listeners from the US to know about Futaba Mirai Gakuen or about Fukushima?
The students in our school would like people all over the world to learn from our experience, but this time I have a few questions. So, what will you think of when you hear of Fukushima? And is there any difference in recognitions between urban and countryside?
Shoto Sensei, thank you very much for joining us today from Fukushima, Japan. We would like to now open up for questions from the audience.
Riku-san, such a pleasure to have you here today. And we had the pleasure of meeting your students and we had a great conversation with them. And today is a Saturday over in Japan. So we are, having a great time with you today instead. So Riku-san, could you maybe start with a brief introduction of yourself and where did you grow up?
Yeah, I'm Riku Shiota from Futaba Future High School, and it's the 10th year as a teacher in Fukushima Prefecture. I was born in the north part of Fukushima Prefecture.
And on March 11th, where were you? Could you share some of your experiences on that day?
On March 11th in 2011, I was a university student and I was waiting for becoming a teacher because I passed the employment test. I was supposed to be a high school teacher in the coastal area in Fukushima Prefecture.
Shoto Sensei, can you tell us what inspired you to teach English at the Futaba Mirai Gakuen?
At the Futaba Mirai Gakuen? when I was a high school student, I was not good at English, not good at studying. But my high school teacher always cheered me up, empowered me, and taught me English every day. So thanks to him, I'm here today. So I want to be a teacher like him, and as a citizen of Fukushima Prefecture, I want to contribute to revitalization of my prefecture.
Wow, that's quite the story. I mean, I think all of us have that, like, one teacher, one or two teachers that really made an impact in our lives. And meeting your students, I think that can really tell that you made quite the impact on them as well. So, and I wanted to ask you, because your students had shared with us that they had been engaging in a lot of student projects, and you have obviously seen many projects over the years. Could you share some of the memorable projects that you've seen?
Yeah, the most impressive one was domestic student exchange. The project features the point that students stay 7 days away from their hometowns to understand the lifestyle of other communities. That project aimed to have the students from other communities understand the lessons from Fukushima Prefecture disasters, and have them spread into other communities across Japan. In fact, she conducted a tour around Futaba district in Fukushima Prefecture as one of the part of her project.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing project. Yeah, wish to learn more about it. And
Shota Sensei, have you seen a shift in the types of careers that your students want to pursue since or because of 3/11?
You mean the shift? Sorry, I couldn't.
311のせいで学生たちって将来的にその仕事とか考え方が変わりました？
Changed in various ways.
Okay.
So some, not only students, but also some adults lost their jobs just after the earthquake, and many people had trouble in getting jobs after the disaster. And now 10 years have passed since the disaster, especially fishery and agriculture are still in trouble because of the social stigma.
And
thank you for that answer.
And over the years, we understand that you have taken your student to New York. In fact, earlier today, you were in a seminar with with the UN. And so could you share with us a little bit about your experience of taking your students to New York and what sort of impact that has had on your students that you've seen?
I'm here instead of students today. So now they are joining the conversation with United Nations officers. They are very excited to join that kind of meeting. So the discussion always changes students positively because they deliver their presentation in front of United Nations officers. And some of the students decided to enter the school university abroad, and others decided to contribute to the community more.
see. Yeah, I think the UN is definitely like quite an impressive organization to be able to have the experience to go to as a high school student. So it's quite engaging, and I'm sure very like for the future of the students, it's an amazing experience for them. So yeah, thank you for sharing.
ありがとうございます。
Shota Sensei, can you share what kind of a place Futaba and Fukushima is like?
Fukushima Prefecture is a very beautiful place. So I would like you all to visit the prefecture after the COVID-19 disaster. You can enjoy. You can enjoy beautiful sceneries, delicious food, and warm-hearted people, and so on. So I would like you all to come to this area, prefecture.
Well, I think definitely you have convinced us.
As soon as we can travel, we'll be there.
Yes, indeed. And this will be probably one of the last questions. We only have a few minutes left, but Craig Williams asks, one of the difficult parts of improving his Nihongo has been, nobody is there to correct his mistakes. And how do your students deal with this while learning English?
I see. English learning. As for English learning, just before the COVID-19 disaster, many people from abroad visited our school, and they had communicated with them. That motivated our students a lot. So the meeting or talking with friends abroad will be the best way to improve the language skills. So now we can use the online meeting system like this, so it can improve our language skills. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that tip. We'll be using that.
Okay, well, that'll conclude our questions with Shota Sensei.
Shota Sensei, thank you very much for your participation today, and please continue to stay safe and healthy. We would now like to move on to our last panel focused on the future. We have with us today Gentaro Yui from Moriumius and Angela Ortiz from Place to Grow. Both are NPOs, and they are joining us from Tokyo, Japan. Gentaro Yui is the founder and director of Moriumius, a nonprofit organization with the vision of rebuilding disaster-affected communities through education and empowering children to become sustainable citizens. Gentaro brings to this work an international background in diverse industries and a passion for alternative youth education, nature conservation, and food production and consumption. In 2015, Gentaro was recognized for his extraordinary work when he was selected as Nikkei Business's 100 Leaders.
Angela Marie Ortiz is a Colombian-American multinational, long-term resident of Japan with over 30-plus years living in rural Japan and Tokyo. She's a social impact entrepreneur, CSR professional, author, and fitness enthusiast. Her career began as an early childhood educator in Tokyo in 2005. She then transitioned into social impact after the 3/11 earthquake and tsunami. Angela established her own company, Place to Grow, a community-building nonprofit using fitness and language exchange to inspire and connect children in rural province of Tohoku. Last year, Angela launched her book, Place to Grow, 8 Principles that will make you an effective leader in social impact, which offers insights and tips for leadership development. Before we start, they have both provided a short video to help us understand their nonprofit organizations. Let's watch.
Hey, it's Kevin, and we're here in Minami Sanriku at the high school, where we have a bunch of kids from the Tohoku region. And today, we're bringing sports to them, and we're going to be doing all kinds of fun activities. Why don't you come have a look?
あとアメリカのスモール、
そうそうこれ
マシュマロ。
Place to Grow is a community building nonprofit. We work in rural Miyagi, which is a prefecture in northeast Japan. We've been here for almost 8 years, and we started in the immediate aftermath of the 3/11 disasters. Our mission is to inspire the next generation of Tohoku, and we do this through events that focus on fitness and language exchange.
It's great to be here. These kids are fun, and I love sharing my joy for fitness with them. You know, coming here for just 1 hour today ends up leaving a pretty significant impact on their lives, and to me that's incredible.
Many people don't know that along with the physical infrastructure, the tsunami also devastated the community itself. Rebuilding house and home after such a personal loss is a very real struggle and takes a great deal of time and energy.
この地域で遊び場を開こうということは行われていたようですけども、震災は特にそういうこともできなくなったために、そういう時にまずアンジェラさんをはじめとする方々が東京からいろんな支援をいただいたということに関して非常に感謝をしているという話をよく耳にしています。それから総合の方々が今年おいでになって、その今までの震災後からずっといただいていた支援にプラスして新しい空気を入れてくれた、それに対してはすごくいいことだなと思っています。
We keep coming back to Tohoku with ideas and energy because we are seeing the visible impact on the community.
Children look forward to and are excited to see us. The local communities are feeling stronger and more empowered.
And they're beginning to take the lead towards rebuilding their community. Our activities in Miyagi and Fukushima connect more than 1,500 children annually. But there is still more that can be done. Come volunteer with us and make an impact.
Come to Miyagi-san Week! 待ってます!
Yay!
Just a reminder to the participants, if you have any questions for Gentaro or Angela, please ask them in the Q&A section. After we are done with the interview, we will try to address as many of the questions as we can. Gentaro and Angela, thank you very much for joining us today from Tokyo, Japan.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Angela Ortiz. I'm born in California, but raised in rural Japan, Aomori, so very northern part of Tohoku. My parents moved here when I was just 3 or 4 years old. And our organization is a nonprofit. We focus on community rebuilding. Our mission is to inspire the next generation of Tohoku. And this is because we started in the aftermath of the 3/11 tsunami and disaster of 2011, and we're based in Miyagi Prefecture.
Yes, hi, my name is Gentaro Yui. Thank you for having me here. I am running a sustainable learning center, as you can see in the background, called Moriumius. We are based in a town called Ogatsu. The town was hit by tsunami back in 2011 and has lost about 80% of the population. We are trying to provide not only education to the children, but trying to create a visitor flow to this community so we can help the community to revitalize.
And Angela, could you tell the audience, what was your motivation to start your NPO?
So as I mentioned, growing up in Tohoku meant that when the disaster hit, a lot of the towns that were heavily impacted felt like my backyard. And I had never been quite active in social impact or volunteering prior to 3/11, but this time it was just a combination of the scale of the disaster. It was absolutely horrendous when I first visited it. And my own brother, like, he had to evacuate Sendai, and I had so many friends impacted that there was a time where a couple weeks in, I realized that if I chose to do something, that I could make a massive difference. And that combination was sort of the catalyst to make me feel like I wanted to get involved, but then also talk to my colleagues on the ground who were like direct victims. And together we decided that we would start an organization and we would focus on various aspects of recovery throughout the different phases.
Well, I was in Tokyo when the disaster happened back in 2011. But previous to that, I was in New York when 9/11 happened. So I did not have any connection to the Tohoku region. But I felt like, this wasn't something that happened in a place that I didn't even know, or I didn't know any people. I felt like, I have to do something. So me and my friends went to Tohoku every weekend to basically volunteer. We basically cooked in a different evacuation centers where a lot of the locals were evacuated. Then we went to this town, Ogatsu. The damage was it was just horrible. And we met this principal of the junior high school who asked us to cook for the students. And that's how we got connection to students and the parents and the teachers. And then we found this abandoned school that was left up in the mountains. It was closed down back in 2002. So we thought it would be a great idea, not just us volunteering, but creating a place for children to gather, as well as not for the local children, but also children from all over Japan to gather so that the community can be revitalized. So it was just through volunteering, meeting different people, felt like the natural environment was so rich that I was so moved that I felt some kind of a responsibility to build this center for the children as well as for the future community.
I know both of you have mentioned that your organization has been impacted by COVID in many different ways, but I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about how your organization, Angela, how has it been impacted by the pandemic? How have you had to shift different things?
So our programs were in-person workshops using fitness and language exchange to, educate children and really foster communication. So we basically switched over to Zoom and explored what that might look like. We had great learning opportunities, knowing like how many staff did we need to have present in the Tohoku, for example, the classroom there, in order to have a successful online class with the children. But one of the things I'm most proud of in 2020 was that we were able to redefine our signature event called the Santa Soul Train, which connects various towns and schools throughout Japan through a pen pal aspect. And usually this is accompanied with really like high intensity, like music and dancing. Just think of your average like home Christmas party where families coming together and there's music and laughter and food. How do we recreate that in a virtual world? But we were able to, and local families stepped up, dressed up as Santa Claus, delivered stockings to children. We were able to send stockings down to Tokyo to the children here. And that was really exciting because in a way it means you can expand your operations without necessarily a huge influx of capital. And so exploring what this silver lining is something that we're looking forward to in 2021.
I think this fiscal year, we are going to lose about 90% of the visitors. We normally had about 1,500 people visiting throughout the year, but this year it would be decreased by about 90%. So instead of us asking people to visit us and staying at our center, we are choosing to provide what we can provide to children through online. So what we're doing is we're asking the local fishermen to send the fresh ingredients, seafood, to each families, and we would provide like cooking lessons using those ingredients. And not only just to teach children and the parents how to cook with fish or whatever that products that fishermen send, we would show them how ogatsu is like now, like live using cameras with our staff running around the town. So it's very interesting that we can connect to the families easily. And we thought it would be for families that came to us in previous years, but now there are so many families that we didn't even know, we didn't have any connection to, are logging on to our programs, like families from Okinawa or families from Hokkaido that we had no access to. So it's becoming a very interesting community that each family wants to learn something, but at the same time, they are connected to our community. And we're trying to expand that into schools now. So like schools were visiting during the weekdays, now we are trying to provide these online programs to schools during the weekdays and to families over the weekend.
Another question about this pandemic time, right, that we're dealing with is the challenges that your organization and the community are having to face right now. Specifically, Angela, do you have those challenges as well that you're dealing with, and how are you dealing with them today?
So one of our biggest challenges is people, because in order to lessen the burden, the financial burden of running an organization in 2015, we went 100% volunteer. So everyone has a day job and this is all done on the side, which is fantastic. We can have a very lean organization, but this also means that on top of everything else, people are volunteering. So sometimes we don't have enough people to go around to really help us push forward as fast as we want, or to really make the impact that we want. And that's something that's constantly a challenge for me personally and for our leadership team is, volunteer pipeline and making sure that we have enough people. So we are always looking for new volunteers and new members to join us and help out.
Oh, that's a great, yeah. And a shout out to Place to Grow. So if there's anybody listening that's interested and is able, we will hope that they'll reach out to you.
Well, just to sustain this center, it does cost you to just have this center, even though we have 10 staff that, I do not want to cut their salary. So to sustain the organization, the center is becoming very difficult. So we're trying to create some kind of impact through online program. So it's happening. Some of the staff that's living in Ogatsu that was running the center have starting to leave our organization because I think their motivation cannot sustain because there's no people visiting to us. And they moved to our organization because they wanted to run the center. They wanted to receive children and provide learning experiences to children. So controlling or motivating these staff is becoming very difficult. But positive side would be we can hire people or we can ask for volunteer to help our online program. They can be based in anywhere in Japan or even outside of Japan, maybe in US. So we're still struggling, trying different things and see how things will go.
Well, Angela-san, I think really even within our own Japantown, we're recognizing that importance of the youth and getting the youth engaged. And I wanted to ask you, how do you keep the youth engaged?
Make it fun. Transferring ownership to the youth, I think, is really important. They're of course they are like the beneficiary, but they're also the biggest contributors to the programs because our whole mission is to make sure that they grow up inspired by new ideas. one of the side effects of this disaster is when you destroy a community's sense of how they used to be, redefining what is possible in their lives is something that really does require external support a lot of times. And I've always been so inspired by how these tiny little aspects, like bringing in new volunteers from different places around Japan and also the world, through small conversations, you see these students realize that, oh, there's all these different opportunities for me out there. And I really can, like through the sort of triggering creative imagination, these students start to talk to us about, oh, we'd really like to see this activity, or what if we, tweaked some aspects of the Santa Soul Train to make it, connect to us in various ways. And I find that those conversations are really important. And moving forward, what we want to do is now create like the youth alumni as sort of like an advisory team to help us guide how we navigate these programs moving forward. So I think it's really communication, and then us as outsiders, or us as volunteers from external, we're just like the oendan, like the supporting team that asks questions and helps really trigger their own vision for what they want to see and how they want to continue engaging with us.
Since we focused on sustainable learning, providing that to children, so it's very simple that we try to focus on the seasonality, how nature works, and how fishermen or farmers, like traditional Japanese work style was basically, living their lifestyle in that natural environment. You probably know Satoyama culture. So we're trying to deliver that to children, but not in a way that we teach them, like how they learn at school. We try to focus more on them feeling, using their senses, as well as, communicating to each other. And, we try to learn from them. A lot of times adults can learn from children. So our staff focus heavily on that part, not trying to teach what we know, but to learn from each other. So having said that, since we've been running this center for 5 years, a lot of the children have gotten older, became high school students or, university students. So they come back as volunteers, interns. So there are a community of youth group, not the children that we receive, but in the middle between those children and our staff. So those youth community have been helping us a lot. And I hope we can, grow that so that maybe one day those youth members will become more staff, or they would do something similar or pass along what they've learned to, other generations.
Wow, thank you so much. I think both of you are mentioning things that we're also definitely trying to be very conscious of within our own Japantown as well. And maybe, Michael, did you want to speak a little bit about what your thoughts are about this question as well? How do you keep the youth engaged?
Well, Angela really touched on it, and that is involving the youth. And Angela and I actually talked about this offline when we first engaged. But one of the things that we've done is, of course, created what we call Young Professionals Network within the museum at JAMsj. And the reason for that is because we wanted them to have a place where they could gather. We have a program right now, it's called NCI, which is the Nikkei Community Internship Program. And that's where we take 2 college interns for an 8-week course through one of the community organizations. And the beautiful thing about this is it's actually done in San Francisco's Japantown, San Jose's Japantown, and LA. And so the 3 Japantowns actually work together through those 8 weeks, and they get to learn from each other. They also get together. And in this Zoom environment, we've actually had, Zoom gatherings. In the normal time of the year, we'll actually have the cohorts come together, and they'll have a gathering at the very beginning of the 8-week program. They're in the middle of the 8-week program, and then at the very end, they also have a gathering. And so they get to know each other really well. And it also connects these future leaders to the 3 communities, which I think is a wonderful way to get this, as we talk about cultivating the future leaders. But YPN, because what happens is after the 8 weeks, where do they go? And so we wanted them to have a nice soft landing. And the museum is always looking for volunteers, just like both of you. And so we thought we would create this incubator of sorts where they could come to an area or an organization that has a need. And the other thing that I'm trying to do is create content for the youth, by the youth. And so they're creating the things that they want to hear about, not what adults want to talk about and share. And so they're now pulling together programs that they're curating. We're helping them with it so that they get a structure. But once they get that structure, we want them to run with the process so that they can build their own content. So I know that's a very long question to a short answer, but that's what we're doing at the museum. So what do you hope for the future of your organization and community? Angela, we'll start with you.
So I'm hoping that our Santa Soul Train participants will grow. It would be amazing to have Gentaro, your community, part of the Santa Soul Train this year, for example, and to connect with the students there. It's really just about that growth of connection and seeing how the networks grow and working with more stakeholders and more people to inspire the next generation of Tohoku. And that is really our hope for this year and moving forward as we go into the next 10.
Well, we need to focus on how to sustain this organization or center. And that equals to, sustaining the community, I think. We first started Moriumius to, provide children education to children. But at the same time, the more children comes and the more opportunity we have, we could impact the community. So the community will be revitalized. So hopefully not just this year, Moriumius will go on for next 10, 20, 50 years. And by doing that, I think, children would grow and they would start, changing their communities. They will become leaders and they would, start thinking about this planet. So, right now we're very focused on how to overcome this pandemic. But in the longer terms, we hope we can continue what we're doing. And, by doing that, we need help from the younger generation that we are, basically providing the programs right now.
Please, if there's an opportunity for us in San Jose to get involved as well, please reach out to us. We'd love to see something between all three organizations.
We would now like to open it up for questions from the audience. Gentaro-san and Angela-san, we have a number of questions for you from the audience. And one of the first ones that came in is there anything that people here in the US can do to support these programs that you have? Maybe Gentaro-san, can we begin with you?
Sure. We have a page in the Global Giving site. So even though if you're based in US, you can support us through donating through Global Giving site. And that will help us a lot to provide, basically programs to children. We now started to provide programs online to orphanages or single parent families. So it would be great if you can support donating us. Thank you.
And Angela-san?
Yes, you can donate to us as well. Actually, we are trying to grow our membership because a lot of our work is done remotely. So there would be actually hands-on volunteer opportunities for people interested. So simple call to action is on our website. We have a new sign up to be a member and you'll receive content and information on the various opportunities. So hope to see you there.
Another question that came in, and this is, Gentaro, this is for you. What does the name Moriumius mean?
Good question. For those of you who understand Japanese, if you think about the Japanese characters, Mori stands for forest in Japanese characters, and Umi is ocean, and us means, of course, in English, we, but in Japanese, it means tomorrow. So because of this town that we're based in is rich with forest and ocean, we talked with the locals when we started this, that we could create future of children, as well as future of this town through this natural environment of rich forest and ocean.
That's a great name, very fitting.
Yeah, it's almost like a name of the movement instead of a name of a location or a center. Yeah.
That's nice. Thank you for sharing that.
And we have another question. So what does your day-to-day look like within your organization? Angela-san, can you perhaps start us off?
Well, we all work remotely now. And so it's a lot. We've got a Slack channel and there's constantly text going back and forth and a lot of
right now, because we're doing a lot of promotion, like awareness of the organization, and we're taking a reflective look back, there's a lot of editing going on, but it's mostly just I'm on my phone a lot.
I see. And Gentaro-san?
Yes, we're similar to what Angela just mentioned. Before this pandemic, we used to have schools visiting during the weekdays, and families would visit over the weekends or holidays. So now we're trying to switch that completely to online. We do provide programs to schools during the weekdays and to families over the weekend. But besides that, yes, we're communicating through Zoom or Slack, trying to, get over this pandemic.
So how do you both measure success in your organization when you look at all the things that you're doing? Let's start with you, Angela.
Well, of course, we use metrics, like just the simple calculating like how many members we have, how many volunteers, and of course our beneficiary community, how many students are involved. But also I think there's we have these like quarterly touch bases with the local leaders and with our stakeholders. And it's really the feeling that comes out of those meetings when there's an aligned sense of purpose and we have this feeling of excitement about what we're doing. For me, that's personally one of the strongest ways that I know we're on the right track and we're going in a direction that is meaningful. But of course, with our donors and those aspects, we do have strong metrics that we share.
That's great. Gentaro?
Yes, it's very difficult to measure success in terms of education, how, what we're doing is impacting children's future. But what we're hoping is that, what we're providing to the children, they would create a sustainable life or sustainable society. Basically, take care of the planet, revitalize and regenerate, hopefully. So that's something that we're hoping that children would accomplish in the future. But in the close future, because of the town we're in, is the population is decreasing. Right now, it's about 800 now, the locals are living. So we need to do something to that. So it's very difficult to bring new people into the town to live because it's such a small community. But somehow, we could do something to this community. It's a big task, and I don't have exact answer for it. But that's something that we want to accomplish, and I think that would be one of the success that we could accomplish throughout this organization.
That's a great metric, right? I mean, I think the next step for you, Gentaro, would be mayor.
No, I don't like politics, but yes, yeah, someone needs to lead this community.
I'm just teasing, but yeah, I mean, you grow the city and the area, then that's great.
So speaking of, getting people to come to these locations, could you share with us, each of you, share with us, what are some of the favorite places that you like to visit in your area, and any sort of tips for when we go visit? Maybe we can start with Angela.
Sure. I went last October and I cycled from Hachinohe in Aomori down to Fukushima, Soma. They have the Michinoku Trail now that you can walk. And I think the actual trail is 1,000 kilometers. But obviously I couldn't ride my bicycle on that. So I just went down Route 45. But it was brilliant to see the landscape change. And I really wanted to just like see, taste, and touch and feel like what was recovery and what was rebuilding. And, so up in the Aomori area, they're still rebuilding the highways and the seawalls and things. But then as you go south, and what's interesting, it's the same 2 flowers that grow along the entire coastline there that I saw, these yellow flowers and these ferns. But if you go, I do recommend cycling because I think it's, friendly for the environment. It's a great way to see. It's like a great pace. Like you really get to see the countryside. I stayed in some of the most amazing ryokans when we were in Soma. There was no one else in the ryokan. So it was like kashikiri. And we just sat down with the owners and ate and drank. And it's just such wild country up there. And my favorite is the onsens. I love the hot springs. And so Minami Sanriku has this hot spring that overlooks the bay, and you can watch the sunrise
And it's just one of the most peaceful places I've ever experienced. And so please do come and visit when you can and enjoy the nature.
That sounds amazing. How good does an onsen right now sound, right? Like all of us are imagining it right now. And Gentaro-san, could you share with us some of your favorite places to visit?
Sure. Well, I should say, the town where I am in, Ogatsu, which is about an hour and a half from Sendai. It's a very small town, but like Angela was saying, the coastal line of Iwate and Miyagi is just amazing. The forest and ocean is so close to each other. My favorite place in Ogatsu would be up in the mountains looking down the ocean, because the scenery is just, something that you cannot find throughout the world. We had visitors from Italy a couple of years ago, and they were saying the scenery is much better than Amalfi. So, just to see this, amazing scenery is one thing. And also because it's a fishery town, you get tons of fresh seafood. Right now is seaweed season. So you get to taste the fresh seaweed just out of the water, the ocean. Normally, you would consume seaweed boiled and salted. It's very rare to taste the fresh seaweed. So that's something that you can only taste if you come here. So yeah, it would be great if we get to see, whoever's listening right now in Ogatsu.
Well, it's certainly dinner time over here, so you just made everybody hungry.
myself included. Gosh, the next time I'm up in Tohoku, I will definitely give you both a ring, because I would love to visit both facilities. Yeah, that sounds so amazing. Wow. Well, this has been great. And I want to thank both you, Gentaro and Angela, for joining us all the way from Tokyo and for spending time with us and for sharing all your stories and wonderful work that you're doing. It's just amazing. And so again, thank you very much. We would like to now thank all the panelists for joining us today and sharing their insight into the past, present, and future of the Tohoku region. I would also like to thank Tak Yamashita from JETRO for his help in introducing us to several of the panelists, as well as Darrell Miho, who introduced us to Gentaro and Angela. Last but not least, I want to thank Yuki Nishimura for helping us with the preparation, with the organization, and co-moderating of this event. You did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And of course, behind the scenes, this could not have been possible without the help of Kinako Miyake for her great help on the video, the flyer, the graphics, and Chris Hioki for his help with the Zoom setup. And a shout out to our own San Jose Taiko for providing the great soundtracks. And of course, Darrell Miho for his graphic images that we're using. Everybody, please stay safe and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you very much for joining us.